All right, let's begin. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the OpenE webinar. Today is February 22nd, 2011. My name is Todd Maxwell with the OpenE Technical Sales, and along with me I have Tom Simon, who's part of the OpenE sales team. What we have here in this webinar is I've noticed that a lot of people are asking for a short, quick version of how to set up the DSS V6. And I think that it's important to know this because what we're known for is the ease of installation and being able to set up. Now, there is some webinars that were done how to install the DSS V6, and that's like almost a preliminary course that you should know, and I've already set up a webinar for that in the past that you can refer to. So this is almost after the fact of once you install DSS V6 on a module, USB, or a hard drive, or even array controller. And we show the link on that in the next presentation. As many of you know, I like to cut the PowerPoints very short and get right to the GUI so we can get to a lot of the questions and answers that you probably have. So today's topic is going to be setting up your new DSS V6 in 10 minutes or less. How you will install the DSS V6, I'll show you where the link to do that. Accessing the DSS V GUI and configuring the main setup features. We'll go over that. They're very simple, just to get you going to where you need to be. And then, of course, creating your RAID array for the DSS V6 and V6 volumes. And that's going to be part of that link that's tied into how you install the DSS V6. Now, once you get the DSS V6 installed, you're going to create your fiber channel iSCSI and NAS Logical Volumes. And then what we'll do is we'll configure them very quickly and then access those shares and targets through Windows operating system. Okay, so where are the videos? They're located right here, and if you look at the screen right in front of you, you see that there's a tab called Libraries, and that's where you'd want to click, and there you want to select Webcasts and Videos right here. Now you'll see a lot of the information there. There's really two that I really want you all to pay attention. When you first install the DSS V6 onto a media of your choice, bear in mind if you boot up with a CD-ROM, it is only a readable version, so you cannot save your settings for the nature of the CD-ROM. So we recommend that you install DSS V6 on a USB flash stick, making sure that's wear leveling support, or a USB DOM, disk on module. You can install it on a hard drive and or onto a 2 gigabit volume from your array controller. And in this one video that's located, it's called Installing OpenE DSS V6, we'll explain to you within 20 minutes on both aspects and how to install DSS V6. That typically takes about 5 to 7 minutes. Probably a little bit less if you're experienced. You could do it probably in 4 minutes, especially with using the 2 gigabit volume. It's much faster on the array controller on installation. And of course, the last piece is how to activate your DSS V6. If it's online, it's no less than 20 seconds to complete. And if you do even offline, we send it within a few minutes or to a couple hours. On the weekends, we really don't, but typically somebody's usually on board to give you that activation key. And by the way, there is no reboot. So with that, I'd like to get into proceeding with, after we've installed the DSS V6, what do we do next? So let's end the PowerPoint. And by the way, I want to thank you all for showing up, and additional webinars are always planned. You can check our website and you'll see the date and time for the next sessions and planned events. Okay, let's exit out of the PowerPoint and go right into the DSS. So as you boot up the DSS V6, we have a default IP address. The default IP address on all DSS V6 is 192.168.0.220. Any other NICs that you have, if you have multiple network interface controllers, you'll see the third octet being 1, and then of course the next NIC will be 2 and 3 and so forth. So you'll be presented with the OpenE login screen, and here the full access is what you want to take advantage of here. That provides all the administrative rights and its full control. The default password is admin, A-D-M-I-N, and here we have it stored. So let's go ahead and log in. And once you boot up, you'll first see that what version you're running. If you're running in 64-bit mode, which is the default, by the way. And also if you already have a product key or your license, and you'll see this information. And of course the capacity as well. So this will give you the version that you're currently running. And then from there, at this point, what you want to do is kind of set up the information. So if you ever decided to change your default IP address, let's begin with that. So if you go to Setup, Network, and then select Interfaces. Here you want to change, you might want to change your server name. So if you want to set it to another name, you can set that and hit Apply. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just name this as Source in case in the future I want to do some replications. And here it'll do a restart. It does not restart the system. All the functions we're doing right now will not restart the system. So you might want to change the server name at this point. And after that, you might want to look at setting your DNS settings. If it's by default, it will be blank. So if you want to set your DNS settings, you can. Here's just our screen refresh. And here with setting multiple DNSs is possible. Typically, if you have an ADS environment, you want to make the ADS server your first default DNS server. And if subsequent DNS servers, you can apply on the back end. So here you can add another DNS server, and we could state 8 as one of them. And once you've set the server name in DNS, pretty much all you have to do next is then set your gateway for your NICs. Now again, we talked about there's many NICs. If you see right here on the left, E0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And of course, you can have many of them, and they can have mixed ones. You can have 1 gig E's and mixed of 10 gig E's all in one interfaces here, so you can have many of them. We go to E0. We see that it does not come with a default gateway. We can add that in there. And if you want to add additional gateways, you can. What we recommend is that you create static routes. But typically, usually if you have one NIC or network interface controller used for a management interface, you want to set that for your default. Pretty much that's it, unless you really want to change any of the HTTPS port to be able to access the DSS V6 through the GUI on your browser. You can change this for whatever you wish, but default is 443. And if you want to change the password. After that, there's really nothing more to do, and we're done with that. And one more thing is we are talking about doing NAS, iSCSI, and fiber channel, but I want to bring up a point about fiber channel. Typically on default, if you have a fiber channel HBA, what we write, by the way, is we support 2, 4, and 8 gig QLogic fiber channel HBAs in target mode only. Now the LSI and Emulex you can use and QLogic for initiator mode. But by default, when DSS V6 boots, it's going to set it to initiator mode. This I is representation of the initiator mode, and T for target. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the target for this QLogic. So when we set up for our initiators on the Microsoft side, we'll be able to see our iSCSI volumes. So there is, in the past there used to be a reboot. We've updated with the latest versions of 4786 and 5087. The latest versions, you do not have to restart DSS V6. This is one of the many ongoing improvements that we provide with the ongoing QLogic development. After that, all we really need to do is go to configuration and in volume groups. And you see here, this is where let's say we've already created our RAID array from our RAID controller, or if you're using a software RAID. And then now in the unit manager, you see that you have one unit presented. You can have many units, as you can see here. The first one I'll present would be unit S00. So when we have these, we can create new volume groups or dynamic volume. Keep in mind that dynamic volumes are used for our tape library system. So by default, we want you to use the default volume group to create a new volume group. If you have multiple volume groups and you are going to want to use the dynamic units, then go ahead and use that, and then you can use that with our backup features with the NAS functionality to create virtualize tapes from that dynamic unit. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create our first volume group. And this message is just stating that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be formatting and erasing all available data on that array, and here we're formatting it. So bear in mind that if you do have existing data that was from another system that you're using, please be aware to back that up before using this, before DSS V6 formats it. In that way you do not lose your data. So this is basically, once this is completed, what we're going to see on the left here is you're going to see a volume group that's going to be designated as a VG00. Now you can have many, like I said, many units, and you can have many volume groups. So on the left here you see VG00. If you had, let's say you wanted to create one unit for SATA and one unit for SAS, or one unit, let's say this would be, let's say for a RAID 5, like a regular bit bucket, but you want to create another unit, you can do so. So let's say we had another unit, S0001, and that would be, let's say, SAS, a RAID 10, and that would be for most of your databases, SQL, Exchange, maybe some high performance I/O needs for virtualization. You can create many new units for that. So let's go ahead and click on VG00. And here is our logical volume manager. And you're able to create as many logical volumes of all different sorts. So let's take a look at it. So here we have the ability, you want to click on the action button to be able to create a new NAS or an iSCSI or fiber channel volume. So for this session, let's go ahead and create all of our volumes right now while we're here. So let's go ahead and create a 20 gig NAS volume. Now I want to let you know that the capabilities of replicating NAS is available at the block level, which is all synchronous. If you wish to use this feature, you can. By default, it turns it into source. So if you have another system, make sure to use that and select destination in your volume replication task. Write once, read many. Be aware that when you use this, please be careful, because in order for you to remove this logical volume, you would have to remove the whole unit. So I would recommend, when you're using the worm functionality, is to create a different unit, and it's solely used for worm functionality. All right, let's go ahead and select our iSCSI volume. Looks like somebody's still having sound issues, so just let me know if you can hear me or not. And I just increased it, and if you can't, just let me know and I'll increase the volume a little bit more. Okay, so now I've got iSCSI volume, and you'll see that here I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to have it do it automatically. And we'll just create a 20 gig. And again, you have the volume replication feature. And if you see the file I/O, and what this is that basically, typically you want to use block I/O. In very rare instances, you could use the file I/O. But the initialization, if you select the initialization with file I/O, keep in mind it's like doing a low-level format. So it will take some time, and we do have a rate level. The performance can be degraded because it takes a lot of performance to be able, and resources to format that when you increase the values. So if we selected file I/O, I would select slow if you've got a lot of volumes being utilized right now, a lot of people accessing the system. If it is after hours, then go ahead and select fast. But I typically like a block system instead of a file system on a raw block device. So let's go ahead and create our iSCSI volume, and then we'll go ahead and create our fiber channel volume. There's a question that says, when will the recording be on site? Typically it takes about a couple days because they're being edited and they'll be posted. Alright, so now what we have here is we have our NAS and we have our iSCSI, and let's go ahead and create our fiber channel volume now. Again, you have the capability of using volume replication with fiber channel volumes. For Microsoft version, I'm going to use the 4096 block size. And I'm not going to be initializing because that does take some time. And again, we'll just set it for 20 gig at this purpose. So keep in mind that when you use the replications for any of the NAS, iSCSI, and fiber channel, that they'll be set for source. So on your destination, you want to make sure that they are all basically for the destination set for destination. Now here you'll notice that right now I'm able to delete and remove this volume, but the iSCSI I cannot because it's kind of grayed out. Well, the reason being is because I automatically created the target. In Fiber Channel, we don't automatically create the target, so we have to manually assign that. So let's go to start with our NAS, and let's go ahead and go to our NAS settings. Typically, by default, we will do the workgroup internal LDAP. There is a webinar explaining how to use for Windows ADS and other features. And typically, if you want to use all the file protocols available, you don't have to, but you can select them here and have your settings set so when you use them for your share, they are available. So once we check that and we have no other needs for any other file protocols, let's go to NAS Resources and then go to Shares. Now this is where you create your share name. So for simplicity reasons, we'll just go to Data and set a data share name. And we've selected LV00 to be our available logical volume that we're going to put our share on. You can specify other paths, but for simplicity use, we just take the defaults. Here on the left, you see the data shares created. And the next, what we want to do is just for simplicity reasons, just select guess anyone without password. Now you can add users and groups and assign passwords for those users and groups and add as many shares as you wish. Additionally, if you notice that the availability of the other file protocols are off, that's because we didn't select them in the NAS settings. So if you want to use the Apple Talk Filing Protocol or FTP, go back to your NAS settings and turn those on. Okay, so let's take a look at our Windows system. Pulling up a Windows 2003 server. Make sure we can all see that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go and do a simple check. And we're just going to use //192.168.0.220, which is the default that we came in on the DSS V6 and the GUI to configure it. So instantly, we've already created our share called data. Now we're able to access it, and we can even send certain files immediately right to it. Let's just go send a couple files so you can see that just setting up a NAS is very simple, and you're done. So this is showing the ability of how quick you can set up a NAS share and access the files within a very relative short period of time. Now let's go to our iSCSI. So we've already created our iSCSI logical volume, and what we want to do is go and make sure if, let's say, you didn't create the target automatically, you would want to go to Configuration, then select iSCSI Target Manager, and of course Targets. Now if you didn't see the target created here, all you have to do is just hit Apply, and it'll create the target for you. Just like what I just did here, you'll see that it created target 1. So let's click on target 0 because that created it automatically. And remember in the beginning we talked that you could not delete the logical volume. Well, that's because it's already been assigned. So here, if you needed to unassign it, what you have to do is click on the minus button. And of course this will dismount the iSCSI logical volume. And when this does this, you can see that it gives you some information notation. Typically you want to start out with each target with a LUN 0. So all subsequent targets you would have a LUN 0, and then of course all LUNs in that target, and add 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here we are seeing some information of a logical volume 0001 is a 20 gig for iSCSI. Again, if you did not select the automatically create target, just click on the plus sign. And this also with SCST is what we're using for our iSCSI target solution. We don't do resets, and that's the value of it. The iSCSI Enterprise target solution will do iSCSI resets, but that is not on by default. All right, let's go back to our Windows server, and let's go ahead and select. Let's get the iSCSI initiator. So you want to use the Microsoft iSCSI initiator. Of course, this will work with Linux, VMware, Zen, and incidentally, we just got certified with Zen 5.6 of last week. Let's enter the IP address of the default IP address that we were working with. Of course, you can use the other network interfaces if you had a different subnet. in here once we've entered it. Now we're going to go to targets. Now you see it automatically picked up our target, and all we want to do is log on at this point. You have other variables. You can automatically restore the target once this connection system reboots. And of course you can do multipath. We do have some instructions how to do multipath with Windows 2008, which is very informative and provides really good speeds. We also have some of that documented for you as well. Now we've already seen our 20 gig of iSCSI target that we've created. Let's blow this up for everybody a little bit. Okay, so now we have a 20 gig volume ready to be formatted. And we'll click through the defaults. We'll do a quick format. And we'll let that format in a second. All right, and now we should have our iSCSI drive. So here it's empty. We have 20 gig available. Again, you're ready to go to start sending files right over and copy it and begin working. There again is how simple and fast you could use the DSS V6 with the iSCSI volumes and the targets to create them, and use Microsoft Initiator to pick right up on. So that's the purpose of really helping a lot of people, is how quick DSS V6 works and be able to get right up to speed. So now let's look at our fiber channel. So let's take a look at our fiber channel. So we want to be able to go right into configuration. You can select Fiber Channel Manager. And again, you want to make sure before you go into this is that you do set your fiber channel QLogic HBA to target mode. So let's just go ahead and check. We'll go to Setup, Fiber Channel. And here we do have it set for target mode. If not, then just go ahead and hit Apply, and then go right back into Configuration, Fiber Channel Target Manager, and then Groups. Now, for simplicity reasons, we created the default group, which is almost like a public group. But if you wanted to create a private group, you could do many aspects and naming conventions, and you could say Group 1. And this would mean that specific port names on the fiber channel HBA that you're using, that we would assign the worldwide known aliases. So you would set many aliases. This would be set for the HBA from your host initiator. And of course you would assign a name to it. Once you do that, then you would assign that HBA to that default group. So it would have a listing that you've created over to the worldwide name. No name for an aliases. Set them to the side to those who can access it for this line. But for this purpose, what we'll do is we'll just use the default group. And here we have the Logical Volumes 002. Again, we specified 20 gig. Now, we don't enable this by default. So you do have to enable it. It only takes a second. And now let's go back to our DSS V6. And what we want to do is make sure the fiber channel is seen on the other network, on the fiber channel that the DSS is on. So here I'm using the Sand Surfer. What we're going to do is we're doing a rescan, a refresh. And give it a second. And we see that it's good. So we're going to use port 1. And then let's do a rescan on the disk manager. Let's reconnect. Okay, it looks like my loop is down, so let's troubleshoot a little bit. I might have an issue on my configuration here. So let's see what's happening. Let's go back to our fiber channel. where you're going to use this port, which is 0, 0. This would mean 0, 1 would mean it'd be the second port. So it'd be port 1 is 0, 0, port 2 is 0, 1 on the fiber channel HBA for the QLogic that I'm using, which is the 2562 version. Now let's go back to DSS, to the Windows 2003 server. Let's see if we can get that configured and reconnect. Looks like I'm definitely having an issue with my targets here. I don't think it's the target. I think it's mostly just, and it was working before I set this up. So I'm wondering if we will try to close this out and restart it again. We know that the DSS is seeing it as a target, or wouldn't be selecting back. Let's refresh to verify. It's always fun when these happen, especially during a live show as it is right now. But typically it's probably good that we do see this happen so that way others can learn from it. So let's go back to our configuration in our groups. And let's remove this group. Shouldn't have no bearing at all, but let's just go ahead and retrace our steps. And let's turn it off. Let's try turning it back on. And let's try to reconnect once more. And stating at the current loop, and let's check out our diagnostics. Let's try to configure it and see if we can do that way. Interesting. It shows that it is at this point disconnected. Tell you what, everybody, I'm going to put it on pause on the recording. Let's go ahead and check. Give me a second, and I'm going to verify if there is an issue. So hold on with me, and let's check it out. 1 second. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think I checked the cables. They look good. They're blinking. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and do a rescan on all devices and see if that helps. Maybe it will. So let's check here. See if we can do a rescan. And at the same time, let's go ahead and try to connect to the control panel and devices and see if we're able to see if there's any issues with that fiber channel I have in there. do a scan for changes and see if anything happens. All right, so here we are. It looks like the loop is down. It could be. I checked all cables. It's interesting. We just had this working before, so hate to waste everybody's time. And always, we see the link, and that's what's interesting is that there's no link failure, sync loss. So it now ends up being a troubleshooting issue. Just let's try loop preferred, otherwise point to point. State stand is good. And let's do a rescan. Ah, there we go. So it was good to troubleshoot on that. Sometimes that happens during these webinars, and it does get stressful, especially when you're live. But typically, basically, once you know your connections are good, and I looked at the physical links in the back, the lights were blinking. I knew we were fine there. The targets looked to be in good order. So at that point in time, it was time to start troubleshooting inside the configuration of the HBA. So here we have the 20 gig that we've created. And of course, we'll just take the defaults, perform a quick format, and then be able to see our next drive letter, which will be F, and immediately it's done. So here we can go ahead and apply our files and whatnot to be able to utilize. So again, this is how quick, other than the issue of troubleshooting on your hardware components and configuration of the fiber channel HBA, how quick you're able to use the DSS V6 and be able to set it up in relatively in 10 minutes. And it's really fast. One of the things that we talked about in the beginning is, where do you find these webinars? So one question is, when do they get updated periodically? And what were the other two that were important to know about? After you've configured your DSS V6, make sure that you activate it. And here at the end, we do have the ability, you'll see on the screen, if it's not activated, it's going to be able to present you with the message and say, you're not activated, you have 30 days to activate. And it's important that you activate it because this allows you to register as well as to obtain support. And this helps you as well as us. So at this point, what you've done is, once you register, there is no reboot, you're good to go. If we look at our website, we go to libraries, and we go to webcast videos. What I want everybody to realize is that there is a webinar that was recorded down near the bottom here, and this talks about installing the OpenE DSS V6, and this will teach you how to do it. In the first 10 minutes, it's going to talk about how to install onto a USB DOM, and then of course the next 10 minutes is how to install it on a 2 gigabit volume from your array controller to install DSS onto. Typically, we like to install DSS on a 2 gigabit volume because it's faster when it boots, it's faster when it installs, it's a little bit seamless, and you already have your array configuration set right there, so it simplifies it. Less power, less device that you have to manage, such as another USB flash stick, and this helps you out. The updates for all the webinars, and we're going to be restructuring this and set these into different categories probably in the next couple of weeks, but usually give it us a few days and this video will be on there. Well, thank you everybody for showing up, and I believe I was able to get to everybody on this short video. That's the way we like to have them. It's quick and clean and be able to get right to the point. If there's any other questions, I'm going to lead it right on out. Always remember that in support, please register your product. Here, if you go to product, right under the support page, you'll see product registration. Here you can go ahead and register your product to obtain support via either email or by phone. Take care, everyone. Thank you again.